Great. So, hi everyone. I think we are joining from different time zones. So, I'm joining from Wellington, New Zealand. So, almost it's good night time here. But I think some of you will be joining from the morning time or the afternoon time. So, welcome everyone for my session. I'm going to talk about end-to-end data governance. So, how do you manage the governance with Purview and Microsoft Fabric? So I think everyone thinks Purview as a standalone product, but I think there is a Purview Hub integrated within Fabric. So I'm going to talk about like, okay, what is the standalone Purview that we talk about, as well as the Purview Hub that we have got in Microsoft Fabric, and why do we need Purview? Because in a lot of the diagrams, when people talk about Fabric, they mention about one lake, and also definitely they will mention about Fabric. I'll show you a diagram similar to that, and so then you will get to see like why we are even discussing about Purview here. And then quickly we will jump on like how Purview is integrated within Fabric, and what are the advantages that you get by using the Purview Hub within Microsoft Fabric. So that's pretty much what will be covered as part of today's session. And thanks for Data Toboggan, because I have been speaking in a lot of sessions with Data Toboggan continuously for years now. And thanks for all the organizers for just making this event happening every year, and that too multiple times within a year. And I know what it takes to organize an event, because I do organize events in Wellington, New Zealand. So kudos to everyone who are putting this huge effort to make this event happening. So with that note, I'm Anupama Natarajan. So you can call me as Anu. And if you need have any questions post this session, so of course we will be taking the questions towards the end of the session. But if you have any questions post the session, feel free to reach out to me. So here are my details. I'm happy to share my slides. And I have 25 plus years of experience working in the IT industry, but I think almost the last 15 years my focus has been with the data. So predominantly like not transactional data alone, but more the analytical side of how do we get value out of the data, and how do I share the value to my business users. So that's what I focus on. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, as well as a Microsoft MVP for data platform and AI. So I look at various ways of exposing data or getting the value out of the data to my customers. So that's why I don't worry about whether it's visualizations, whether it's APIs, or whether it's like now AI chatbots. They are taking up the space of providing value out of data. So I use a mix of those different technologies, like whatever is going to contribute the value for my customers. Okay, so let us jump on to the agenda for today's session. So I'm going to talk about data governance a bit, because a lot of people have to understand why data governance really matters in organizations. And also I'll share some of my real world insights where we did a huge program of work for one of our client, and then like what is the effort that we put in that program of work, but what will happen if you have governance, or what will happen if you don't have governance. And I wanted to just touch upon that before we talk about like the products like Purview and Fabric and so on, because we need to understand why this is really important before we look at the tooling aspect. So then we are going to look at like the Microsoft Purview Hub in Fabric. But before I touch on that, I will touch on why we need Purview and where does it fit within the Fabric ecosystem. And then we are going to talk about some of the features of Purview. So how it brings unified governance for your data, how it makes data discovery and classification more easier. We'll touch upon sensitivity labels and data loss prevention policies, and having business glossary, why it is really important. Again, I will derive that insight from my practical experience, and I'll talk about that. And also we'll talk about the domains within Fabric and how you can organize your workspaces with the help of domains. We will look at a quick demo around the Purview Hub in Microsoft Fabric. Some of the best practices that you have to keep in mind when you talk about governance in your organization. And finally, we are going to wrap up with any questions towards the end. So I'll just keep it really interesting as we go along. So because sometimes like governance topic can be a bit dry, but I'll try and keep it a bit more interesting by sharing some of my personal experiences. Okay, great. So let us get started with the first topic, why data governance really matters. So here I wanted to talk about a customer that I was working for. So for this customer, like we were building we had to build and complete data and analytics platform. So one of the things that they were lacking with their legacy platforms is a single source of the truth. So they had around 3 to 4 different data warehouses, and of course, it's not a surprise, right? So when you go into big enterprises, like you can think of every single technology they will be using, and every time, like if you look at work, okay, so show us your warehouses or analytical data stores, like they will have like 3 or 4 to start with. But this particular customer was more particular around consolidating everything into a single source of the truth. So that was the main mandate that was given us to us as part of the program of work. And of course, to decommission the legacy data warehouses, because always I have seen organizations are pretty good in starting new projects, but they never look at decommissioning. So which means like, oh, if you have already 4 warehouses, then your new project will bring in another one in the cab of the rank and becomes 5 in the organization, right? So we had 2 clear mandates. One is like, okay, get us the single source of the truth. Of course, like it has to be single source of the truth, not at the time of putting the project, but also ongoing as well. And okay, decommission the legacy warehouses that what we have got. So then we worked like pretty much like other organizations, because we had we didn't the customer didn't want us to go in a big bang approach. What they really wanted was an incremental approach, because they had real time trading that they do, as well as they had like they were using the batch based data for a variety of scenarios. So we had to go for a transition state. So we can't do a big bang. So what we had to do is like, okay, we will transition some of the data into the new data platform, but we have to, some data will be still in the old platform, some in the new platform, and then we have to have the tools connecting to that and serving the customers. So we were able to do that successfully over a period of like a 2 years. So you may be wondering why a lot of things, because they had a lot of tools which are actually supported by a variety of vendors, and we needed to make sure like we had to go through this transition state, right? So we had like a goal of like every 6 months we will launch new data sets into the new warehouse system, and then we will just connect the tools, like where half will be here and half will be there, and slowly we were moving everything to the new like data and analytical platform. So that was all good, and it was a 2 year exercise. Everything was fine. Like we had teams focusing on decommissioning aspect, because that was the another key idea aspect that was given to us to achieve. But where we were lacking was on the governance side. So after we completed everything and we had a single source of the truth, the business were struggling in terms of figuring out like, okay, what data we have got, what we don't have. If I have a new data set, like how do I figure out like whether we already have this data set in our single source of the truth? How do I discover that? And how do I find whether am I going to duplicate the same data, or do we have a master data set already, and so on. So this made us to start thinking about, okay, so we have to expose more information about what we are holding inside our data and analytical platform, so that the people know like that they can consume what's already in there. But if they don't find the relevant data, then we can kickstart the ingestion process. And that's where everything started. So not only that, but also like managing the reference data information. And then I was working, this was a utilities domain, right? So even for a person like me who was new to utilities domain, I have to get into understand a lot of acronyms, what they have been using. And sometimes like the same term has got different definitions depending on which part of the business that you have been talking with. So a lot of challenges in that aspect. So as a team, we sat down and said, okay, so we have to start looking at governance here, and we need to start looking at what tools that we have got in order to bring in governance to the organization. We talked about governance. So it's not that we didn't think about governance at all during the course of the program. We talked about the governance, we talked about data stewardship and other things. But what we didn't really look into is like how much the tooling aspect also is important. So we had processes, we had procedures, but what we didn't know is like we had processes in place to say, oh, if you want new data to get into the warehouse, how do you go about doing that? But what we didn't have is like how do we give that self service capability for end users, so that they can discover, they can figure out what they really need before they get into it. So we had a business glossary, but it was in Excel spreadsheets, typical to a lot of organizations. So we didn't like it because, again, we had different versions of the Excel spreadsheets floating around. So that's where the tooling aspect also we started looking into seriously. So why I'm saying this is, as you can see, right, like we can have successful programs that we can deliver for organizations, but data governance is really important, because if you have to maintain the status quo, oh, I have a single source of the truth. How do I make sure the single source of the truth is well maintained? So whether we talk about quality, whether we talk about security, whether we talk about avoiding data duplication and stuff, and how do we maintain the data throughout its entire life cycle process, that's where governance comes into the picture. And nowadays, we are seeing a much more explosion of the data. We are not talking here about, at that time when I was working with the client, it was only on premises data, but now we are talking here about data from the cloud, data from SaaS platforms, and so on. So which means there is a lot of data silos and a lot of data that organizations are dealing with. Regulatory and compliance requirements are increasing. Data breaches, as you know, everyone talks about cyber security attacks and so on. So how do we build the trust in the data and analytics? That's where the governance comes into the picture. So now let us talk about the Fabric ecosystem, right? So I think this is one of the diagrams. So pretty much most of the presenters in today's presentation, they would have been presenting you about that, because everyone is talking about a certain aspect of Microsoft Fabric. So what I'm talking here about is the Microsoft Purview stuff. Yes, it is right at the bottom. And I think some people would have noticed it. Some people would have just thought about, oh, there is something in there like it. So you can see Copilot there. You can see One Lake there. But Purview is actually, even though it is right at the bottom, it is one of the key important component when it comes to Microsoft Fabric, exactly for the reason I talked about, right? So you can build warehouses, you can build lake houses, and you can build a good data ecosystem. But this data ecosystem needs to be maintained on an ongoing basis, because there is a lot of investment the organizations are putting in. So you need to have the right to, you need to give them the right tools in order to govern the data. And that's where Purview comes into the picture. So let us talk a little bit about Purview before we move on further. So when we talk about Purview, Purview is actually initially started like a set of a SaaS solution. So Purview is a SaaS solution that is available on your Microsoft ecosystem. So what Purview provides you is a good visibility of your data across your organization. So here I'm not just talking about Fabric, but also if you have the data ecosystem sitting on Azure, whether it is operational data stores or your Cosmos DB or any your ADLS Gen 2, doesn't matter, whatever you have got in the Azure ecosystem or Fabric ecosystem, Purview will give you the visibility of your entire data across your organization. So you will be able to manage the sensitive data across its life cycles, because when you're dealing with data, there can be sensitivity around with the data. Some can be more confidential data, some can be less confidential, but you don't want to share it with external people. So you will be able to manage, apply sensitivity labels across your data and manage the data life cycle. And also it allows you to manage critical data risks as well as the regulatory requirements. Because if organizations are looking for managing compliance and meeting their regulatory terms with that, you can do that with the Purview. And Purview pretty much provides you a unified platform to do all these things. Whether we talk about data security, whether we talk about governance, whether we talk about compliance, Purview has everything in it. And that's why this is a product every organization is currently using, not only from a data perspective, but also from other aspects. So when we talk about Copilot, whether we talk about Office 365, people talk about Purview in that aspect. Sometimes it may add that complexity also, right? So, okay, so are we saying we need to have Purview just because for the data side, or do we need to have Purview because of the M365 ecosystem that we are having. Purview serves for both. And that's why, like, if you recollect it, like, it has gone through different cycles. So initially it was like a catalog for just for the data sources on Azure, but slowly it expanded into the ecosystem of M365. So coming back to here, so Purview, as you know, it is like your ecosystem for managing your data security, your governance, as well as your risk and compliance. And it is a unified platform that Microsoft provides you. So what is its relationship with Fabric? And that's what we are going to talk about for the rest of the session. So when we talk about Fabric, we are talking here about the different data sources and stuff, right? So we are talking here about lakehouses, pipelines, warehouses, and one of the common theme that you always look for is first thing is the data discovery aspect. So how do I find what data that I have already got in my Fabric ecosystem? And then the next thing you will be looking at is like, okay, how do I apply sensitivity labels? How do I manage policies? How do I apply policies around my data? How do I create a business glossary? And so these are all the aspects that you will be considering when we come to governance related tools. And that's what Purview pretty much fits the bill with. So when we want to talk about the Purview Hub in Microsoft Fabric, I don't know how many of you have looked at it, but I will go and demonstrate it shortly after I give you a quick overview about Purview Hub itself. So it is the Fabric's built-in governance layer, and it sits within Fabric. So main idea for having the Purview Hub within Fabric is it provides you a single pane of glass for all your governance needs. So whether you are a data steward, whether you are administrator, or whether you are uh, pretty much like owner of your data, Purview Hub pretty much provides you everything. So you have seamless access to discover your data, you can classify your data, you can protect your data, you can monitor your data directly within the workspaces where the Fabric items reside. So the integration with Purview is really deep. So you can use it in terms of like whether you are dealing with warehouses, lakehouses, pipelines, notebooks, as well as any other Fabric items that we are talking here about. So pretty much like by using Purview Hub, you are keeping your governance always turned on. That's what. So when we talk about always on for databases, I will say Purview will help you to keep your governance always on within your organization. So in a nutshell, we talk here about Purview can help you with managing your sensitive data. It can help you with identifying data risks and manage regulatory requirements. You can also you can create an up-to-date map of your entire data landscape that you have in your organization, whether it is just Fabric or outside Fabric. So if you use Purview Hub within Fabric, then you get a whole view of all the data sets that you have within Fabric. But also Purview can go outside of Fabric also, which I will also show you in the demonstration around like what Purview within Fabric and what is Purview outside of Fabric can offer you. And also it provides a secure environment for all the data consumers so that they can find valuable data. So the first and foremost, if I talk about Purview Hub, I'll touch upon the unified governance. So what Purview Hub provides you is it brings in all the core governance functions in a common way. So it supports automated scanning and discovery of your data landscape. It can provide you lineage. So one of the thing, as I told you, for my customer, we were struggling was the end user who is looking at the report. They want to know exactly like where this particular data came from. So they want the ability to backtrack it to see like, okay, what was that original source where you got this customer information from, or what was the original source where you got this order information from. So the lineage will help us to backtrack and doing that. So before we had Purview, one of the things that we had to do was like we were using a tool where we had to import all our mappings. So we had mappings like especially when you're talking about medallion architecture. So we have mappings that from source to bronze, bronze to silver, silver to gold, all the transformations and everything that we do. So we used to import these mappings, and which was helping us to build a lineage. But since Purview was there, like we don't need to like manage our mappings because the pipelines and things that we build will automatically like derive the lineage between the different Fabric items. And that is one of the key advantage. We may be wondering like it is not that important, but a lot of customers that I have dealt with, lineage plays an important role for them. Not only to figure out where the original source is and why it is really important, is also for them to do impact analysis. So for instance, the scenarios that I have dealt with in a real world is like we put the warehouse and everything is all looking good, and we have finished everything. Then immediately like a request will come in 2 months time saying like, oh, this particular data feed, we are changing the structure of it, or we are going to add additional columns, or we are going to remove stuff. So then the next question comes in, oh, okay, which reports are using this file, or which reports are using this data? So if they are going to remove a column, which reports are going to get impacted? So that impact analysis that we have to do, right? So that we can keep our business users informed, and that's where the lineage comes important, and it plays an important role. So lineage is not about just tracking to say, oh, this table is coming from where, but it also plays an important role from an impact analysis perspective. And I have used lineage a lot in order to perform. So because first thing they will come and ask is, Anupama, like, can you tell me this file is changing, give me a list of all the reports and all the pipelines and things that are going to get impacted. How do I find that? Especially like when I'm dealing with like a 500 or 600 pipelines and running, and you have got a huge amount of reports running in different data marts and stuff. Who is going to be impacted? How do we proactively manage that? That's where the data lineage comes into the picture. And then like sensitive data is another thing. So now we are talking about like we don't want people to share sensitive information, whether it's a confidential or a highly confidential information. So how do we be able to do that? By applying sensitivity labels. And also like we can put data loss prevention, or what we call it as the DLP policies, so that you can restrict risky sharing, or even if people are trying to attempt to share, we can put policies around in order to stop that. The business glossary, again, part of that is like if you want to drive consistency in terminologies within your organization, then probably you have to maintain a business glossary. And the cool thing about then we have tagging. I think it is all about how do we group our workspaces in a unified fashion. So if you look at all these capabilities within the Purview Hub, like all these are monitored, audited, and it gives you full visibility as well as the control that you are looking for. So if I talk about data discovery and classification, why this is really important, for the examples which I mentioned to you with my real world scenario, right? So discovery and classification, they are the foundation for effective governance. That's why I'm talking about that upfront. So what Purview Hub automatically does is like it will scan all your fabric items. So you don't need to go and feed anything to Purview Hub. Purview Hub will scan all your fabric items, whether they lake houses, warehouses, pipelines, and also like it has got built-in and custom sensitive type, so it is going to detect anything that is there in your data. You can visualize like where your sensitive data resides. You can actually prioritize your governance action. You can tag them, you can filter them, you can label them, and you can do a variety of things. So it's more around like, okay, so once you know like exactly what data you have got and how do you like manage the sensitivity of the data, and also like how do you classify the data? So how do you group the data based on like, okay, whether it is going to be like the tagging is going to help you in terms of whether it is like highly sensitive or whether it is like just informational data. Purview Hub will allow you to do that. So when we talk about sensitivity labeling, this is one of the key governance controls. So this is helping you to classify your data by risk or by usage policies. So in Fabric, the labels are not just a metadata, they are enforceable information. So labels can restrict in terms of who can access it, who can export it, who can share the data. And when you integrate that with the DLP policies, which I told, right? So where it will help you in terms of providing automated data protection. So there is an also concept called as auto labeling. So you can do auto labeling with the help of classification rules. So you don't need to manually label things. In Purview, you will be able to do set up like auto labeling rules, so that every time when the new data set comes in, like it will be, if it meets the condition, then it is going to be automatically labeled. So that capability is also available in there. We touched on business glossary. Like as I said, it helps the business to align the data with their meaning, how the people speak, so that they can all use the same language when they are talking about something. So in the Purview Hub, glossaries are centralized and they are easy to apply. So what it means is like you can easily tag the assets with the business context. And also what you can do is you can organize your workspaces, as I told, with a domain based thing. So for instance, like you may have different business units, you may have sub business units underneath, and then you can actually create domains and subdomains, and then you can organize your workspaces accordingly. So with help of business glossary and the data domains, it is going to pretty much democratize and enable true stewardship. So for people who are new to the concept of data stewardship, so data stewards are people who are looking in working in the organizations. They are part and parcel of the business, but they take this extra responsibility where they are some custodians of the data. So what it means is when there is an issue with the data and stuff like the business users, rather than rushing into ICT for help, these are people, data stewards are people embedded in the business. So they will be the first point of contact because they understand the business domain. So they will be able to provide responses. Only if it is a technical issue, it basically gets into the ICT team mostly. So the data stewards play an important role, and one of the tool that the data stewards use day in day out is Purview. That's because like everything that they require is available in Purview, whether it is all about the glossary, classification, sensitivity labels that they need to apply. So everything that we discussed in the last few minutes, right? So all those capabilities are mainly used by the data stewards to start with, who will be using it day in, day out. And others, of course, they will be using it from a discovery process when they are actually looking for that data. And of course, like people like me who are actually working in the ICT side, but we will be using it from a lineage perspective because as I said, I have never worked in an environment where I put the data and I've been sitting quiet for 6 months. Like from the time I put the data, from the next month itself, change will be coming in, whether it's from data feeds or some sort of like a logic or validations that we have to incorporate. And that's why Purview is going to be really valuable for a lot of these organizations. So what are the real world governance scenarios where Purview can be really useful? So think about like you are onboarding a new data into a lakehouse. So discovery and classification needs to be done. Sensitive tables need to be labeled and protected. The warehouse can have data loss prevention policies, and also sensitivity labels can be enforced on specific columns. If you take notebooks and pipelines, they will inherit the tags and policies. And also like Purview Hub allows you in terms of from an audit perspective, it will help you to monitor your access, monitor all the violations that you're seeing, and also helps you to generate the compliance reports as you require. So enough of us talking about Purview a lot. So let us get into some demos, right? So first thing I'm going to talk to you is about Fabric. So let me pull through Fabric here. So the thing I wanted to show in Fabric is where do I go and look for the Purview Hub? So under settings, you will be able to see the Microsoft Purview Hub. When you click on it, you can launch Purview Hub here. So as I told you, right, so Purview Hub is part of within Fabric, but also like Purview is also residing outside Fabric. So if I want to access Purview Hub within Fabric, I go to Fabric, app.fabric.microsoft.com, go to settings, and I can access my Purview Hub. The other way of accessing Purview is typing purview.microsoft.com. So that's another way to get into the actual, the full-blown, what we call it as the Microsoft Purview. So this is Purview, and this is the Purview portal. So I don't know how many of you have seen this side of the fence. This is the actual Purview portal that we are talking here. So the Purview portal here, this provides you the insights and stuff in terms of the entire data landscape, not just Fabric, but also the entire data escape. So we are talking here about like your Office 365, M365 artifacts, as well as everything can be governed here. So when you look at the solutions aspect of that, sometimes you may feel like there is a lot of repetitiveness, like, oh, I can see things in here, which I can see in the Purview Hub also. Yes, but there is a reason why it is there, and I will talk about it. And they are not duplicates, it is the same information, but you get to see in two different views. So if you look at here, you have your data catalog. So here you have the data discovery. You can see your different data assets. And one of the cool thing, if you look at here, right, so you can see that you can explore your data sets, what you have in Azure, as well as what you have in Fabric. So you are not just looking at only Fabric here, you are looking at more on that because we have operational data stores. Governance is for every data in the organization, not just Fabric, right? So when you come to the purview.microsoft.com, this gives you the view of your entire organization data estate along with Fabric. So if I want to explore Fabric here, I can just go here and explore the different Fabric workspaces I have got, and I can get into each of the workspaces and I can see what is it in there. And you can see all the different components of what's available. And then you can see whether I have my pipelines here or what warehouses here. So you will get to see that. So pretty much they are well integrated. So whether you are seeing it from Purview connected to Fabric or where you are seeing the Purview Hub within Fabric, you still see the same information. That's what I'm trying to convey here. But not only that, when I'm looking at it, I can also get into Azure. So anything I have got in Azure, like where my storage accounts, my data lake storage Gen 2, because I want classification and discovery of that data also inside my governance tool, right? So the purview.microsoft.com will allow you to do that. So whereas when you jump into the Purview Hub within Fabric, so here it talks about only the Fabric items. So it doesn't talk about the Azure or any operational data store or things that you have got outside of Fabric. So but everything that you have in Fabric that you have to govern here, you can come and govern it within the Purview Hub. And that is the fundamental difference we are talking here. So a lot of people ask this question to say like, okay, when do I use purview.microsoft.com or when do I use the Purview Hub? So if you're a Fabric administrator and if you are or a data steward managing for just Fabric items, then probably like day in, day out, your job is going to be just working with Fabric items. Then you can use the Purview Hub within Microsoft Fabric. But if you are have to have a complete view of your entire data estate, not only just Fabric, but also like what you have in Azure or other cloud data sources, then probably purview.microsoft.com is your way to go. So now you have the clear distinction between when do you use the Purview Hub within Fabric versus the purview.microsoft.com, right? So slowly like the features that you require is embedded in the Purview Hub itself. You can see it's still in preview, but it has got the features that you are looking for embedded in here. Cool. So let us look at just a quick tour on what you can get to see here. So we talked about data catalog. We talked about information protection. This is where the sensitivity labels and stuff comes into the picture. So when we say sensitivity labels, how do you apply that to the Fabric items? So if I go back to my workspaces here and just get into my workspace and I'll just get into my lakehouse. So right at the top, you can see here, right? So if my lakehouse, so what is this lakehouse comprises of? What is the level of data that I have got? So is this lakehouse has got confidential data or is it like, okay, publicly shareable data? So this is where the labeling part comes into the picture. So the cool thing about this is this confines to your organizational labels. Like for instance, if you're using Word, Excel or PowerPoint or even Outlook or Teams, like you normally like a tag your documents or your artifacts with your sensitivity labels, right? Same concept in here. Those sensitivity labels you can apply. So your organization can define a set of sensitivity labels and those sensitivity labels will also appear on your Fabric items that you can assign. So here you can say where this particular lakehouse has got restricted data and I can just mark it as restricted. So which means every time when people look at this lakehouse, it will have restricted thing. And if I have data loss prevention policies, which means I won't be able to share this lakehouse with other external people because the policy will prevent me to do that. So how does the policy know? Is because of the sensitivity label, because the sensitivity label is marked as restricted. So this is how you will be just going ahead and applying your labels. So getting back onto my Purview Hub here. So if you start looking at here, this gives you a quick overview of what are the things that you can see with your data within the Fabric environment. So as I said, right, so this is just starting with Fabric, but if you want to see a full complete landscape, you will be able to do that with the help of the purview.microsoft.com portal. Cool. So once you connect the Purview and Fabric here, so you can get to see the Purview Hub with all the information, key insights that you are seeing here. So these are what we call it as the tiles, and so they provide you advanced governance and compliance capabilities. So here in the Purview Hub, you get to see like a dashboards that is going to give you the security posture of the organization's data estate. So each of the tabs we can see. So at an overview level, what you are getting to see is how many items in Fabric items you have got labeled and unlabeled. So if you look at it, only 3.43% of my Fabric items are being labeled, and the remaining has been labeled. So again, this is something that you can just use it, and then you can push your end users to do that. And what are the different top sensitivity labels and how many items? So here quickly you can see how many Fabric items like that are like sensitive, that I have got confidential information. So you can come and find that out from here. We will also look at like the domains which I talked about, right? So the way how you can classify your workspaces and stuff. So you can group your workspaces and you can create nested domains also within Fabric. So here it goes much more detail about each and everything. So here it says like, okay, what are all the different items I have got and which are the ones that doesn't have a label. So straight away I can look at it, and also like I can see which has got labels. I can filter it by any particular sensitivity labels that I'm looking for. So you can see at the workspace level how many items I have got, how many of them has been labeled, what are the different item types. So as you can see here, right? So out of the different items that I have within Fabric, like what type of items have been labeled, or so I can quickly come and see like, oh, okay, so it's mostly the reports. So then I need to talk to the data analyst, or it's mostly the pipelines are not being labeled, the reports are properly being labeled, then I can talk to the data engineering team. So this breakdown is going to help us to do that. And also it can see the creators, like who are the people who are creating it and who are the people who are contributing for the labeling process. So you get to see that information in here. The next part is the endorsement. So the endorsement is again an important aspect, right? So if I relate it back to the customer I was working with, right? So we used to have when we are getting customer data, so we spend a lot of time to consolidate the common dimensions that we require, like the key dimensions like customers, orders, and stuff. So because we had to maintain the single source of the truth, right? But most of the times, as I said, like people, even though we have a customer dimension, they don't know like how much I can trust it. And that's where the endorsement comes into the picture. So you can endorse the data to say like, okay, whether you are actually promoting it or whether you are certifying the data set. When you are certifying that, then probably like people can use it with confidence. So promotion is to say like, okay, I have done all the hard work in terms of cleansing the data and preparing this dimension. Try and use it and give me the feedback, because once a lot of people within the organization use the certified data, use the promoted data, then you can send it for certification. So these are the things in terms of the how endorsements can be really valuable, and it's helping the business users to get the confidence on the data. So a lot of the people think, does it really matter? It really matters in real world scenarios. Most of the times I get asked questions to say, how do I trust this data? So, but when you have this endorsement to say it is certified by your organization itself, then that provides the confidence for the people. Otherwise, what they do is they do the same thing, saying, no, 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 I will do better transformations than what is already in there. So that's where I think you can avoid such type of noises in the organization by having proper endorsements of your data. Again, Purview Hub allows you to group everything to see like, okay, what things have been endorsed and whether you can do it at the item level, and also you can do it at the creator level. So who are the people who are properly endorsing the data, who are not endorsing the data. So you'll be able to find that out. So what items are being created by whom. So this is another thing, which is the domain which I talked about. So normally like it would be nice, like you can see the domains, what you can create. So mostly it will be your Fabric administrators who will be creating the domains. Some organizations go and do that with a hierarchical structure that they have got, like the organizational structure, or some organizations do that based on the domain data domains that they have got, and they will put the create domains and create the hierarchy based on that. So it gives you that flexibility in creating whichever way you want. But the key point here from a Purview perspective is like you will be able to get to see how your workspaces and things are organized with the domains. And that's what you will get to see here. My favorite thing is this items explorer. So pretty much it's a single view of everything I can look at about my fabric. So I don't care about like workspaces. I don't need to navigate to individual workspaces to do that. If I want to filter it, I can filter it, but at a glance, like I'll be able to get to see everything. How many workspaces I have got, so how many domains I have got, how many items I have got. So then I can also start drilling out to see like, okay, how many items in each workspaces I have got. So then I can start doing more information. So all these things are part of your what we call it as the Purview Hub within Fabric. Of course, certain amount of this like a data catalog and things will take you to the purview.microsoft.com. But watch this space because this is evolving and the more features will be added in here. So the key thing to keep in mind is when do I move between, when do I use the purview.microsoft.com versus here? Mostly like Microsoft is trying to bring in all the things that you require to govern your fabric items within the Purview Hub itself. So if you are looking at your entire data estate that you want to go and look for, and that's where the purview.microsoft.com comes into the picture. Cool. Couple of other things when we talk about it, like so the data loss prevention policies and stuff. So here you can go ahead and create your policies. So suppose like if you want to create a policy around what can be shared. So when we talk about the policies here, right? So you can create a lot of policies, not only for fabric items, but also as I said, because it is in purview.microsoft.com for non-fabric items also. But if you want to restrict it to say, okay, so if a particular like a fabric item is marked as sensitive, or if it is like a confidential and you don't want that to be shared, you can put a create a DLP policy here, and that will be enforced on fabric. So the way it will be enforced is like they will get when they want to it will just put that banner right at the top, and it will say like, okay, this information is confidential, and there is a policy that has been applied to that. So really cool ways like how you can like, of course, like we can trust people that they shouldn't be sharing confidential information, but you don't know, right? Especially if they are planning to share it across outside your organization users, and that's where like a DLP policies comes into the picture. So data classification, data discovery, and applying policies to manage your sensitive data. And then the policies are based on the sensitivity labels that you apply. So Purview Hub pretty much provides you all that information that what you are looking for here. So one-stop shop to govern all your data that is sitting inside Fabric. So what are the best practices that you have to keep in mind? So if you want to be successful, treat governance as a continuous business driven process. Automate as much as possible, whether it's discovery, whether it's classification, whether it's applying policies, because if you don't automate it, you can't keep up with the pace and the growth of your data in your organization. And engage your business users. Like as I said, data stewards need to be engaged really early when you are especially putting through to governance tool like Purview, not just IT people. And also make a habit to review and update your policies, labels, and glossary items frequently. And also leverage the integration between Fabric and Purview, because I think that is going to give you the seamless and scalable governance. And also encourage your organization to use like not only the Purview Hub, just explain them, because you can showcase like how data governance can be managed on Fabric, but the same thing can be applied to other data sources that you have within the organization, like your operational data stores and things through the purview.microsoft.com. So probably it is always good encouraging your people to manage and use it. So you can use Fabric as an example to showcase for the rest of the organization how the data governance need to be managed. So these are some of the best practices I would definitely recommend. So just to quickly summarize, we got started with like explaining around why data governance is really important for organizations. And we talked about really about that, the data stewardship, helping data stewards or business users to discover the data, classifying the data, applying sensitivity labels, and having policies so that you can avoid a lot of bad things that can happen to the data. So where we don't want to share information outside your organization if it is confidential or sensitive, and you will be able to drive that through the policy rather than manually relying on people doing that. We also looked at like how you can organize your things in workspaces into different domains and subdomains, and how you can govern the data. You can build your business glossaries within Purview, and also like I explained you the differences between the Purview portal, the standalone Purview portal that you have got, which has got everything including Office M365 related artifacts that you can manage, whereas an Azure artifacts you can manage, whereas your Fabric has got the Purview Hub, which is mainly to govern the Fabric items in here. So you have to just think and choose, like, are you a Fabric administrator where you care about just the Fabric, govern about Fabric items? Use a Purview Hub. Are you administrator, data administrator, you are want to govern not only Fabric items but also the other like a data artifacts that is sitting on M365 or Azure, then probably Purview portal would be the one-stop shop where you will be operating in there. So with that note, hopefully like you would have learned about a bit on what Purview can offer in Fabric, and I will also just tell you like it is evolving, so keep watching that space. And yeah, and also thanks for taking the time for attending my session. I'm happy to take up any questions that are coming through.